Bank of America says hard landing to hit stocks in second half. Fed tightening always breaks something. S&P 500 will drop to 3,800 by March, warned Bank of America strategists. And hi friends, this is Chris, and this is your daily news. So as I was showing you with the headlines, Bank of America is calling for a downturn, and actually they're very particular. I'll show you the chart here. They're saying by March 8th, expect a 7% decline in the S&P 500, a call down to 3,800 is what they're saying. The other thing which they're talking about, the second half of stocks, the big indicator that they're looking at is the 10-year Treasury. They're saying if that goes above 4%, it'll be tough for stocks because basically, we talk about this a lot on this channel where you're allocating your funds, and if you have guaranteed money in treasuries, right, why take the risk in stocks, essentially? So watch for the 10-year, and they're saying, again, above 4% will be pressure for stocks. Stocks sink on Fed's higher for longer rate talk. And it's crazy because the Fed has been saying the same thing all along. And it's like, why do you even have to say this? But it's weird because the market has been rallying, even though the Fed has been telling you guys they're raising rates and keeping them up there. And so like the Fed has been a little bit more aggressive. They're sending out yet more people. Every time I check the news, it's like there's more people from the committee telling you, hey guys, we're really serious. Like, look at this one. Fed officials stress need to keep raising rates to cool prices. And this time it's the Richmond Fed, was it Bowman? And also too, you can see here yet another one. Stocks fall and treasury yields rise on fears Fed will keep raising rates. It's like, gee, is this a surprise? Like, what's going on here? I mean, literally, this is what we've been talking about every day on this channel. You guys know this. Now, some of the more popular people, you guys see this guy on TV quite a bit. This is Orion. He goes on TV all the time. And he's making the case, which is very interesting, that the Fed target of 2% is just not reachable, is kind of what he's saying. And he's also saying essentially that Fed should be going for a 3 to 4% would be more, feasible. But if you really want to get the 2%, it's going to break something. So we'll read a quote from here. He says, the Federal Reserve won't be able to get inflation down to its 2% target without crushing the economy. And that's according to Mohammed El-Orion. And then he says, you need a higher stable inflation rate, call it 3 or 4%. I don't think they can get the CPI to 2% without crushing the economy, but that's because 2% is not the right target. So saying basically the Fed is going for the impossible. That's pretty interesting. You asked Larry Sumner, who have actually met. He says Sumner sees risk of Fed hitting the brakes very, very hard. The Fed's been trying to put the brakes on. It doesn't look like the brakes are getting much traction. The Fed essentially is saying like they're raising rates. It doesn't seem like it's working. That's kind of the gist of it. The risk is that we're going to hit the brakes very, very hard. And then he doesn't necessarily think that it's going to be 50 basis points. He says here, Summer said it's too soon to advocate for the Fed to reaccelerate its rate hikes to a 50 basis point move at the March policy meeting. He flagged that there's still a possibility the economy hits a sudden stop when companies reckon with a buildup of inventories and headcount on their payrolls and consumers deplete their savings, right? So 3 things he mentioned. So, too many inventory that you can't sell. You got too many people that you have to pay, right? Talking about companies here. And then the consumers are just out of money. They're out of savings. One of the things I want to show you guys is a chart here. We're going to look at a couple charts. Here's Bitcoin. This is just on the max chart, so you can kind of see the history of it. And if you can tell me exactly what this thing is doing, please let me know. The point is I want you to get, when you look at something like Bitcoin, it is up and down and up and down. It did that a couple times, right? You guys can see it for yourself. It went up to like, 60 a few times, went back down to 30, went back up to 60, right? And so the thing I distress to you is, yes, Bitcoin maybe could go up again to, 40 or 50, but it could come right back down. And again, if you can tell me what it's going to do, please let me know. And I see Tesla the same kind of situation. Like I said, I'm not just making random stuff up. That's why I show you guys these charts. Just look for yourself. Look at how up and down this thing is. And so, for me, my point of view on these kind of things, yes, you can totally make money trading. If you're trading Bitcoin or Tesla, you can totally make money. If you're just buying and holding and wishing for the best, it's not a great strategy when you just look at the charts. Now, I understand if you look at the long-term chart, guys, I really get it. That's why I'm showing you. This is the S&P 500. Yes, if you look at the long-term chart, look at the S&P 500, it has gone up like crazy. Here's the thing, though. Take a look at the years, and you guys can look at this for yourself. Just go look at the max chart for yourself. Look at the years between 2000 to 2010. Essentially, 2000 was a dot-com bubble, right? It took a long time for things to recover. It took basically, like a 8-year period, essentially, and then it dropped again. And then in 2009, essentially interest rates have been zero until about now, basically. And so you've had this basically hockey stick kind of algorithmic movement in things. And so it is no wonder that essentially Bitcoin and Tesla, I'm using these two as an example, that's when they got started. They got started in a zero interest rate environment. So there's a lot of young people out there who have never seen interest rates move up like this. And I can just tell you, I grew up in the 80s, and I remember when, back then people were talking like, 6 and 7% interest rate for a home was like pretty good. That's what people used to talk about. Because, when you're dealing with like double digit interest, stuff like that, 6, 7 just suddenly doesn't seem that bad. And I've been mentioning to you guys before too, some of the credit card rates today are like 25%, like crazy numbers. Let's take a look at more of the headlines. One thing that's really interesting, you can read the headline of this one. Retail investors have been spending a record $1.5 billion a day on stocks as the 2023 rally sparks FOMO. And it makes me feel like a lot of people are going to get burned if Bank of America is correct, which I have no reason to believe that they're incorrect, because the Fed keeps raising interest rates. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are just blindly, following the trends. And yes, like I said, yes, you can make money on trades, but you have to remember that it's a trade, not necessarily an investment. Like, that's my opinion, but when I look at the charts, it's backed up by numbers. And you got to be careful out there. I'll show you guys an example. This is another person. So this is Paul Pierce. He used to play for the Boston Celtics, the NBA player. He's being charged just like Kim Kardashian for basically pumping, I think it's called Ethereum Max. And he has to pay a penalty to the government. It's like 1.1 million penalty, and then Discord fee of 240,000. So I think total is like a 1.44. And it's interesting, if you read the quote, we'll read it, it's from Gary Gensler here. It says, "This case is yet another reminder to celebrities. The law requires you to disclose to the public from whom and how much you are getting paid to promote investment in securities. And you can't lie to investors when you tout a security." So the reason why I bring this up is because, there's a lot of retail that just gets sucked into this kind of stuff. Like, who's buying this Ethereum Max? Because Paul Pierce and Kim Kardashian is. But it's a real thing. It's the same way that YouTubers are pumping FTX. It is a real thing. There's unfortunately a lot of bad people out there. And this ties into another story. This is very real. And I encourage you, I implore you, please look it up for yourself. I'm not making random stuff up. It turns out that Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, all the hosts on there, they knew what they were telling people, that the election was, stolen, that kind of stuff. They all knew it was a bunch of hooey. They knew it was a bunch of BS. They knew it was a bunch of lies. But yet they told people this stuff because it's for money. Essentially, they were worried, the Fox News people, that some more of the sort of fringy outlets, like say like Newsvax kind of stuff, were eating away from their market share. So they had to essentially go more crazy to do that. But and this is according to court depositions. So if you don't know, if you've been following this case, essentially they were claiming, voter fraud, and then the machines don't work. And then the Dominion voting machine is essentially suing them for defamation. The trial, I believe, begins like the mid-April, something like that. So next month, basically. And they're starting to release, texts and emails and stuff like that during the discovery phase. So I'm not just making up random stuff. That's why I said I want you to understand that there's bad people out there, unfortunately. And it's a very real thing. You can read this. This is headlines. Fox News host Rupert Murdoch were skeptical of Trump election fraud claims. Fox News host executives raised concern about the 2020 election fraud claims made on air, filing shows. And and it's funny, even if I read you the headlines and tell you what it is, there'll be some people out there that just think I'm just making stuff up. But it is what it is. And also, to be fair, there's other headlines out here. This is the Fetterman guy. I guess he's going to the hospital for depression. And I think all of these stories sort of illustrate, unfortunately, the state of the society in the USA, right? People are following Paul Pierce, a basketball player, into buying crypto. People believe, whatever Fox News says, even though Fox News themselves knows they're lying. Fetterman, right, he's on the Democrat side. He had a stroke. I mean, we talked about this. And the person he was running against, to be fairly frank, neither of the candidates were that great. We had talked about this on the channel, and now he checks himself in for mental problems. And I'm not making fun of him for having depression. I'm not making fun of him for having depression. I want to make that very clear. If someone needs help, I think you should get help. However, I don't want this kind of person to be a senator. I just don't think that's crazy to say. And I think this sort of represents the whole problem with our system, to be perfectly frank. And a lot of it has to do, unfortunately, I think it's with lack of imagination. And what do I mean by lack of imagination is just imagine maybe we could find better candidates. Just imagine not every candidate has to be, and both candidates essentially in this election were male, white, I think probably mid-40s, something like that. And I'm just telling you, there are other people out there that could conceivably do it too. But unfortunately, lack of imagination, we get stuck with people who have strokes and who check in the hospital for, mental stuff. So I just think this, again, it represents our whole system. And to be fair, though, I feel like this is part of, if the voter base is a certain kind of way, they get what they deserve, right? And it is a democracy, right? And you essentially have no one else to blame but yourselves. I'm not just making random stuff up. Because, you could make the case that they try to run other candidates, but the voters are like, nah, I just want someone to lie to me. And it is what it is. So there's another headline, and I want to sort of reiterate sort of the problems that we have. This is a headline that won't be very big news at all. I promise you, this will not be the very big news. You can read it together. Apple flexes lobbying power as Apple Watch ban comes before Biden next week. So actually, you're like, what are we talking about, Chris? What is this? This is a small little story, and the basic gist of it, I'll just tell you, is Apple has the Apple Watch, and there's a small company that's claiming that essentially Apple has essentially stolen their technology and gone against their patents, this kind of thing. So basically, there's a company saying that, we have the technology that was, I think it was like they're saying 2015, and then Apple just basically stole it from us, essentially what they're saying. We'll read some of the more details here. And basically what's going on here is that Apple's then paying a bunch of lobbyists to side with Apple. And you guys know Apple's got money. So the apparent effort to win over the White House is the latest lobbying push by Apple, which leans on former congressional staffers and federal officials to relay its message in the nation's capital, right? And this is a quote from the CEO of the small company. Apple has unlimited resources. They're going to go after everyone they can get, and that's what they're doing. And this is Priya Avani, CEO of Olive Core. We are just a startup. And this is moreover, just want you guys to read the details. Apple spent nearly $9.4 million on lobbying in 2022, the highest figure of the company's history, according to nonpartisan group Open Secrets. And, immediately when you read the headline, people, to see what they want to say, oh, it's all Biden. Biden's just a bad guy, blah, blah, blah. That's what they'll say. But let's read this together. We'll read it together. Apple deployed 50 lobbyists, okay? So essentially they sent a bunch of people to Congress, 50 people, in fact. They got $9.4 million to try to convince congressional people, right? And including former aides to Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Republican California, former Speaker now Nancy Pelosi, Democrat of California, and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, as it successfully defeated a bipartisan legislation aimed at lessening the group's grip on App Store purchases. So I just want you to understand that we're not talking about a single party. We're talking about an entire system. And sometimes people ask me, like, how did I know about FTX, this kind of stuff? Because I read everything. I really read everything, and I don't just put on my blinders. Some people, they just put on their blinders and just focus on whatever they want to believe. But if you really want to do well in this world, you really keep your open mind, have a little bit of imagination, and read everything. So, I'll just give you some example. I know we've kind of been a rant today, but it's like, if I'm going to hire an employee, I'm not just looking for one kind of person. I'm looking for whoever's qualified. It doesn't have to be a man. It doesn't have to be a woman. It doesn't have to be someone from New Jersey, right? I can hire anyone from anywhere, from any background. But unfortunately, I am not most regular people. I'm just telling you, I'm not. Most people just get their blinders on. They only look for certain kind of things. Most people only look for bad things for Republicans. Most people only look for bad things for Democrats. I'm telling you, I read everything, and I'm trying to do the best I can. Like this Apple thing, you're probably not going to hear about it in the news that much, but it looks like from my, just looking at this, I don't doubt the small company. It's not like I'm so shocked that Apple would, take technology from small companies. If you're shocked by that, please stay tuned to this channel, because we talk about this kind of stuff a lot. Yes, the small company could be lying, totally could be lying, but I just don't, I'm not shocked by these kind of things. And then when I read that Apple essentially, gets lobbyists who are former aides from people of both parties, right? I'm not shocked. I'm not like, oh my God, I'm so shocked. I'm so surprised, right? It was the same, for example, we were talking about, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, where it was Hunter Biden, which is Biden's son, hired the same lawyer that Jared Kushner used. And it's like, it's so obvious, right? These people run in the same circles. But again, if you have your blinders on, you only look for faults in one party, you're just going to be living in fantasy world the rest of your life. So I know I'm getting a little bit mean this one, but I'm really irritated by both the Fox News and by the Fetterman News, both of them, because I think it just shows corruption in both parties. And it's very, very frustrating. And me personally, I just always felt like I've been locked out of the system because of the way that I look. And I just trying to be honest with you guys, and it's frustrating for me. And I always talk about where I went to school. I went to school with these kind of people, and I could see, them partying on weekends with their rich friends and stuff like that. And I knew that there was the people that were going to essentially run the world. And it's just like, until you've seen it for yourself, and until you've seen that, like, wow, the people above aren't necessarily any smarter. They're just a lot richer and come from a lot richer families. It just changes the way that you see the world, and sort of why I've mentioned you guys, a lot, where you see the show Game of Thrones. That is more real than you realize, right? The people at the top are like a King Joffrey kind of thing. So again, it's both parties. I can't stress that enough. And it doesn't have to be that way. But the key, though, is that you have to, choose to see the world as it really is, opposed to seeing it how you want it to be. So I hope you understand that message. And I know a lot of people probably won't understand anything that I'm saying, and I get that, and that's fine. But I'm going to keep doing what I do on this channel. Is try to do my best to tell you guys the truth. So hope you're doing well, and this has been your daily news.